Hello, and thanks for joining us from our studios in Israel. Coming up in today's newscast, France is moving forward with its peace initiative despite Israel's objections. An amazing archaeological discovery has been made off the coast of Israel. And we show you how one artist is turning Israel's favorite food into a work of art. I'm Denise Wood here with the latest news in Israel. There's been a lot of tension in Israel lately about how much the IDF should be involved in Israeli politics. Now, Prime Minister Netanyahu is meeting with the Israeli Defense Minister to clarify what the army's role is and what their values should be. Netanyahu and Defense Minister Moshe Ya'alon are meeting as tensions continue to rise, following comments from the IDF Deputy Chief of Staff several weeks ago that compared aspects of Israeli society to Nazi Germany. Ya'alon has now come out in support of the general, claiming that it's courageous to speak your mind regardless of the political trends. Netanyahu is reportedly meeting with Ya'alon to clarify IDF values and the role of the army, which has come under criticism for attempting to influence the political scene in Israel. Both Netanyahu and Ya'alon have been praised for their stances by various politicians, and this all comes as Israel continues to debate the indictment of Sergeant Elor Azaria, who was on trial for shooting a disarmed terrorist in March in Hebron. Ya'alon claims the IDF will not allow its soldiers to be trigger-happy, while critics claim the IDF is abandoning one of its own. The two issues have revealed a deep debate in Israeli society about the role of the army and the role of the Israeli populace in supporting its soldiers. Israel has been firmly opposed to a French peace initiative that's aiming to solve the conflict between Israel and the Palestinians. But it looks like that's not going to stop France from moving forward with its plans. The French foreign minister says his nation's Middle East peace conference will go ahead despite opposition from Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. The French minister recently visited the region, and the Palestinians welcomed the proposal, while Israel argued that the conference would try to dictate terms for a peace deal. Netanyahu told the French foreign minister the only way to advance genuine peace between Israel and the Palestinians is through direct negotiations, and without preconditions. Despite Israel's resistance, France wasn't convinced, and the French foreign minister told reporters that France will continue with the plans.
Après la position de M. Netanyahou, il dit qu'il n'est pas d'accord. Mais l'initiative française, elle est en deux temps, je vous l'ai dit. Un premier temps, réunion ministérielle, et c'est seulement dans le second temps qu'on travaille pour créer les conditions d'une conférence internationale avec la participation des Israéliens et des Palestiniens. Nous n'avons pas vocation à nous substituer ni aux Israéliens ni aux Palestiniens. C'est que eux seuls qui pourront faire la paix. C'est que eux seuls qui pourront négocier et personne d'autre à leur place.
France says the ultimate goal of the initiative is for both sides to return to direct talks, with the international intervention laying the groundwork. The international gathering of ministers is tentatively planned for May 30th in Paris. It's expected that the US, Russia, the European Union, the United Nations, the Arab League, and about 20 other countries will attend the conference. Diplomats say the meeting will package economic incentives and other guarantees to create an agenda for an autumn peace conference. Israel is known for being a strong and thriving democracy, but no country is perfect. ILTV's Steve Leibovitz sat down with attorney Michael Partim from the Movement for Quality Government to talk about how Israel can make its democracy even stronger.
Well, on one level, it's a miracle. It's the blooming of the desert. On the other hand, we haven't, despite our its achievements and successes, we haven't been able to disconnect ourselves entirely from human nature, which is liable to corruption. And we have an imperfect political system, as all democracies are. So while I think we are cause for celebration, we also have to be eternally vigilant.
So there's one specific case I'd like to ask you about that the movement has been involved in. Just recently, the Supreme Court ruled that Aryeh Deri can indeed serve as Minister of Interior. This is a guy that had been Minister of Interior, was then convicted of corruption, spent years in prison, got out, was reappointed Minister of Interior. There's something wrong with that, isn't there?
Well, it shouldn't happen. And we will continue to work so that it won't happen. The court gave a 2 versus 1 ruling. There's a very strong minority opinion saying that the appointment as a Minister of the Interior should not be made and should be nullified. We are therefore intending to file a petition for a en banc hearing. In other words, that the full court or a wider court can hear it. This is granted in special instances. We also hope that the Knesset will change the law and increase the 7-year rule, and also say that a person who's convicted of serious government corruption should not be reappointed. I mean, it makes sense. It is common sense. And hopefully, the Israel democracy will come to its senses in this regard.
Turning to another criminal case, the case of former President Moshe Katsav, a man who was convicted of rape, sent to prison, is now eligible for parole. His parole was turned down, and he's appealing for a pardon from the current president, Ruby Rivlin. Is it proper for Rivlin to consider that pardon?
Well, as a movement, we consider the sexual harassment, the conviction of rape, taking advantage of his position in power, as a serious matter of corruption, and therefore he should sit out his full sentence. Additionally, he has not admitted guilt. He is not contrite. He appears to maintain that he did nothing wrong. And so this is another reason why clemency shouldn't be granted. On the other hand, I just have to point out that we have shown, and this is a point in Israel democracy's favor, we have shown that Israel democracy is capable of investigating and prosecuting such crimes and putting the president, the highest office holder in the land, in jail when he is convicted by a court of law.
Israel is 68 years old. Looking ahead, let's say, towards our 75th birthday, in what ways would you like to see and hope to see improvements in the Israeli democracy?
One area which I think we do need to improve on is our ability to create political leaders. I would like to see us with a better leadership and with a strengthened political system. And that seems to me to be the most difficult area for improvement. You know, we had the founding fathers of the country, so to speak, who were cut above everybody else. There's no doubt about it. And since then, the feeling is that political leadership, on the whole, in general, the level has gone down.
Can our political system, as it is today, develop those leaders?
That is a very good question. And there we may need some reform, as I said before, in the Knesset and the way the government is formed and the way the Knesset is elected. The ability to bring in the best and the brightest to the political system is paramount. So I'd like to see us in 75th anniversary with a strong government, a strong legislature, headed or led by people of extremely fine quality. And I think that's the challenge for the coming years. You know, we've proven that in the economic field, in the agricultural field, in the scientific field, that we can produce fantastic results and fantastic people. And I think we have to show that in the political field this is also doable, and that's a major weakness which let's hope we can redress. That's why we're the movement for quality government. We're not the movement anti-something. We're for quality government, so we try to see the broad picture of how to improve quality government, and leadership, frankly, is part of that.
Political fighting in the Palestinian government has led to a major electricity shortage in the Gaza Strip. And now Gaza's dumping its waste in the sea and threatening the Israeli coastline. Millions of gallons of raw sewage are poured from Gaza into the Mediterranean Sea every day, and now it's starting to affect Israel. The sewage has already damaged Gaza's limited freshwater supply and destroyed fishing zones. And there's so much sewage that it's beginning to float north toward Israel. The Palestinian Water Authority says Gaza's beaches are totally polluted and unsafe for swimming. The sewage is clearly a major environmental problem, which raises the question, who's to blame? Gaza has a population that's rapidly expanding, and the Gazan infrastructure was damaged in various wars with Israel. But even more importantly, Gaza lacks the electricity to run its wastewater plants. And it turns out one of the major reasons that there's not enough electricity in Gaza is because of fighting between the Palestinian Authority and Hamas over the price of fuel taxes. The electricity that Gaza currently has usually comes from Israel or Egypt, but only lasts for 6 to 8 hours a day. The result is that Gaza's wastewater plants don't have enough energy to function, and the problem is only continuing to grow. Earlier this year, a desalination plant in the Israeli city of Ashkelon was closed due to the poor quality of the water. Ashkelon is only 6 miles north of Gaza, and the city's deputy mayor says he fears that without a political solution to the problem, the situation will just keep getting worse. Israel is a country of immigrants, and many Jews are still immigrating to Israel today. But the process can definitely be difficult, and it includes a new language and a different culture. Max Fraden is a Russian immigrant to Israel, and he's writing a novel about the entire experience. He's here to tell us more today. Thanks so much for coming in.
Thank you for having me.
Definitely. So first of all, you're an immigrant to Israel, and that kind of inspired this whole book process. Can you tell us more about that?
Well, I'm not exactly an immigrant anymore. I've been here for 25 years. I was basically raised here. I came here with my family when I was 7 in the great immigration from Russia, when 1 million people came in the 90s. That's like one in 6 or 1 in 5 people probably.
Sure.
And so it's based on my story. You know, everything I do is based on my life story and my family and everything that we've been through. And the interesting thing about the immigration is that nobody really knows about it, because 1 million people came. That's 1 million voices, but their voices are not really heard because I think they don't have a voice. Like, they don't really have a voice because our grandparents came from this very interesting and many times impressive life into this very numb and sometimes sad existence. And our parents had to take care of them and take care of us. And they became children themselves in a way because they didn't know the language. And we had to translate for them, and they had to many times give up their profession. Like, my parents are musicians. They're still musicians, but so many people had to give away their profession and put on the security guard's uniform or go. And my parents used to deliver newspapers and stuff like that. And so it's very, very difficult. And there's also the younger generation, which is us, which is, we grew up here, but we have our own very interesting and little-known issues. Like, for instance, we try to become Israeli by not being Russians.
Sure.
And so all those things are not very well known, and that's the voice I'm trying to sound. I'm trying to get to know those people, not the stereotypes and not the general story, but really just go into those characters, which is me and my family and everybody, and just and explain this immigration, this great thing that happened.
Sure, the challenges they're facing.
Yeah, 25 years ago, and how they see immigration through their eyes. So that's my work. That's what I do. That's what I'm trying to do.
Now I understand this has been quite a process, and you've also created several viral videos along with this. Can you tell us more about this?
The videos are it came out of nowhere. I had to promote my book somehow.
Sure.
So I started making those videos, and I didn't think they're going to get so much attention, but I did a video where my parents play my father is a violinist, my mother plays the piano, so they play instruments, and I talk about them and their journey. It became this really emotional video, and it's very emotional because those are my parents, and they have they play at different times, like 20 years ago and 5 years ago.
Oh, wow.
And and I made a bunch of videos about Russian cartoons I haven't watched for 20 years, and suddenly I watch them again, and I come back to my childhood and tell people in Hebrew about characters like Cheburashka. I don't know if you've heard of him. No. Is probably the most famous cartoon character in Russian culture. And so I made a bunch of those videos, and they got a lot of attention, more than I ever thought I could get.
Did you find the attention was mostly from Russians in the Israeli community, or also from the broader Israeli community?
I think many from the broader community found it interesting, but I think it really touched the Russian, because just like me, it touched the nostalgia, because they don't watch those things here, and their children don't watch it. They haven't seen it for decades.
Sure.
and suddenly they see this thing from their childhood and they remember all those feelings rush in, and I think that's what touched them so much. That's why they became so viral, because I think it touched so many of us that went through immigration, and it stirs up this emotion that we maybe didn't even think about.
Definitely.
I did this video about the identity crisis, which is another thing that everybody knows about, but nobody knows what it is. And I talked about how many Russian, like people from my generation, decided to become Israeli by stop being Russian and stop speaking to their parents and look down at their parents because they were weak and in their eyes, of course. And they were embarrassed to speak Russian. They were embarrassed of how they look and how they sound, their accent. And so I did this video, and I didn't think many are going to relate, but so many people related, and so many people wrote me stories from the bottom of their heart. They wrote me stories without punctuation. They just typed like crazy, and it was an amazing experience. It was just beautiful. I just loved it, and I realized I'm making some kind of difference.
Well, it sounds like an amazing thing that you're doing. For people that want to follow along with this, how can they go about doing that?
Well, I was trying to raise money for my book to publish it, but it's actually over today. But I have a Facebook professional page. It's called Max Freidin. It's spelled like my name, and in English and in Hebrew. So Max Freidin Writer. And so all my videos and all the stuff I write and information about my book and everything I do, and I'm planning on making videos for a very, very long time, because apparently I love it. Who knew? And so apparently I'm kind of okay doing that. And so if they want to read more or watch me, I'm going to make videos in English as well, probably. And so they can go to my page and follow.
Well, definitely. It sounds like a fantastic project, and thank you so much for sharing with us.
Thank you very
about
much.
it.
Thank you for having me. Thank you.
Another amazing archaeological find has been made in Israel, but this time it's at sea. Israeli archaeologists say they've made the biggest marine find in decades, and you'll definitely want to see it. The Israel Antiquities Authority archaeologists say they've recovered statues and thousands of coins in the largest marine find in the past 30 years. In fact, the find is so big that the divers who discovered the artifacts will receive a certification of appreciation. The divers made the discovery in the ancient port of Caesarea just before the Passover holiday, and found the remains of a merchant ship that likely sank during the late Roman period, about 1600 years ago. The archaeologists say many of the artifacts are bronze and are in great condition, including life-size bronze statues and figurines of Roman gods. The director of the Marine Archaeology Unit at the Israel Antiquities Authority, Jacob Sharvit, says the find is very significant, especially since it includes bronze statues.
To find this kind of cargo, it's very exciting because there are so many finds and there are so many different materials. We find the cargo of glass. We have all these bronze artifacts. We find the coins. We find the pieces of the ship, including the nails of the ship and the anchors of the ship, and the big hoard of coins that we found together in two broken amphora, weighing about 20 kilograms of copper gold from Constantinos the Great. Just a few years before the Christianity became the formal religion of the empire, of the Roman Empire.
It's very rare that bronze statues are found because they were often melted down and recycled instead of being preserved. Archaeologists say the fact that the ship sank at sea with all of its cargo preserved the statues, as well as the coins that were found. And the coins are also quite the discovery, and bear the image of Constantine and Licinius, who were Roman emperors during the 4th century BC. The find also seems to tell a story, and archaeologists say they found broken anchors, which suggests that crew members were caught in a storm and tried to use anchors to brace the ship before it sank. While the story may be tragic, the resulting archaeological find is certainly impressive, and archaeologists say they're planning to continue. Israelis are known for having amazing food and thinking outside of the box. Yesterday, we met with one Israeli artist who's combining a passion for food with education to make some amazing artwork, and you'll never guess how she does it. Israel's known for its amazing food, and if you had to ask an Israeli to name the most popular food in the Holy Land, they'd probably say pita bread. One Israeli woman has taken the tasty treat to a whole new level, so trust us when we say you have to see it. Gilat Orkin is your typical successful Israeli woman. She has 2 daughters and a successful job in high-tech, but she's also got a mind-blowing hobby of turning pita into art. And thanks to Instagram, it looks like the hobby is becoming famous.
How I came up with the Year of the Sandwich Instagram, and things started rolling from there. It was an artist named Karen Spilcher. She saw what I make on Instagram, because for the last year and a half I started making portraits of people, of events that happened on the same day, like when Golda Meir was elected for government, so I made Golda Meir. And then she saw my Instagram page and she really liked it, and then she started connecting me to the more art world and people, and that's how I ended up having an exhibition of my pita work. When I was working on the exhibition, I took like 3 weeks off, because I used to post them every morning, and people wrote me in private messages. They find it hard to get up in the morning and not see the daily footage or whatever.
Orkin says she got started painting pitas when one of her daughters turned 10, and she wanted a way to make meals more fun and educational.
It started when my youngest daughter, Elon, went to school, and she came back home a couple of days after school started, and she wouldn't eat her lunch. So I thought that I should be more creative in order to make her to eat her lunch. The sandwich that I make has to do with something that happened on the same day. So it has an educational value also. She actually takes these meals, sandwiches every day to school, and everything is edible and she eats it.
But what started as a small hobby soon turned into an art form. Orkin makes all kinds of different pitas of political figures, celebrities, and more. And Orkin says this is just the beginning. She's already getting orders for her tasty artwork, and she says she wants to write a book about the experience. But most importantly, she says the more pita art she makes, the more she loves it.
Miss the creative part and the art part of what I used to do, because I used to study fashion design. So this is how I express myself in the past few years.
And if your mouth is watering after seeing all these treats, you definitely can get your hands on some of the tasty goodness. Orkin is accepting orders, but even for those who rather look than taste, you can feast your eyes on photos of her work at an exhibition starting soon in Holon, Israel. And even if you're not located in the Holy Land, you can check out her Instagram, which is called Year of the Sandwich, and is filled with photos of her work. So whether you're wanting to take a bite of pita or think it's too beautiful to eat, you can check out Orkin's work for the perfect example of Israel's food, fun, and creativity. This is Denise Wood for ILTV. And now for our Hebrew word of the day. Today's word is sefer, which means book in Hebrew. The word sefer is especially important in Jewish culture because the Jewish people are often referred to as Am HaSefer, or people of the book. And while the phrase people of the book might have biblical roots, Israelis definitely love books today. In Tel Aviv, the city sets up kiosks with books in major areas of the city, so people can grab a sefer and read, and then return it when they're done. In fact, the books come in a variety of languages, which also shows off how the country goes out of its way to make new immigrants feel welcome. So no matter where you're from, remember when you're in the Holy Land to relax, pick up a sefer, and enjoy yourself. Let's go ahead and take a look at the weather forecast. Today it's 90 degrees and sunny in Tel Aviv, but it looks like the heat wave is coming to an end, and tomorrow it should cool down to 78. All right, everybody, that's it for today's news. Today's exchange rate is 3.80 shekels to the American dollar. Remember to sign up for our daily newsletter at iltv.tv. And don't forget to check out our evening update every night at 8 p.m. Eastern Time. Thanks for watching, and see you tonight.